On today's video, it's time to get clean. Welcome back and/or to the channel. Today's video, we're going to clean up these rims and we're going to get these rims clean to be able to use pretty much anywhere you want. The point of this is to clean off any old brake fluid, any old road grime that may be on here. Sometimes people don't clean these, and what happens is it builds up so much in here that when you go to balance the tire, it throws off the balance or messes with it. But today I'm going to show you how to clean these up and how to put a little bit of protection on these so that you don't have that the next time that you go to change tires, and to make the appearance of the rim look much better. I'm going to show you some close-ups right now of how this rim looks before, and then I'll show you the process and what it looks like after. Okay, so the before here is we had a lot of brown in here, and what I did to get to this point that it's at right now is I took and used some brake clean, and I cleaned it off real well. I got as much off as I could with the brake clean. Now, one seal is leaking on the Crimson 5.7 behind me, and that seal is basically leaving marks inside the rim. So what we want to do is we want to remove that tarnish that you see inside there. And we did that with the brake clean, and then I did take some Quad Zero steel wool, and that's what I used to clean that up. But this is only part of the process. If you want to just do a rough, quick job, that's one way to do it. You can just do it quick, and then you're over and done. But we're going to go ahead, and we're going to get this rim all cleaned up back to factory the way it used to be. We want to get some more of this discoloration out of here, and we want to get it cleaned up. We're going to go ahead and also put a coat of wax on this. That wax will help to protect it when we go down the road. It'll help keep that road grime off, that brake dust, the oils, and whatever else may sling off of the vehicle. It'll help keep that off by putting that wax on it. And then last step, we're going to also polish up this chrome. Now I know it may not show up very well, but there is some pitting and some dirt on this rim. And when it's done, it should look closer to that rim right there. That's what we're hoping for. But through the process, we'll make it happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this tire down, and I'm going to get set up to actually start buffing the inside of the rim. They do have materials that you can use that you can shorten some of the steps, but it's a lot more messier. They have special aluminum polishes and things like that that you can use to really shine these up. Like I said, this vehicle will be driven, so I'm not too concerned with trying to get a show look out of it. I just want something that looks a lot better than what this is right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my buffer that you see right over there, and I'm going to grab my compound that I'm using. I am using a Super Duty compound to do my buffing. I don't want to get in too much trouble for product placement, so I covered up the name, but that was the part number. If you go to any auto parts store, they should be able to give you what is in this bottle right here. This, let's talk about compounds a little bit. This is a Super Duty compound. This stuff is meant to really cut through. If you put this on paint, you had better be very careful and move quickly. Don't sit with that buffer in one spot, because you will rub through or burn through that paint, maybe all the way down to bare metal. This stuff is very aggressive. If you need to do something like you have extreme contamination on a vehicle, it is better to use a lighter compound than this. Don't use the Super Duty. I had to use a Super Duty compound on the red Sled when I finally get that out of storage. That is an 02 Saturn SC1 that will also be on the channel. But I had to use this because it was at the point that it was either repaint or do this. So I did that one time. Usually you can get away with this one time on a vehicle for the life of that vehicle. After you do this step, you can't ever use this again. You will buff through the paint if you try to use it more than once on a vehicle. The compound is normally what most people will use to pull out light imperfections, extreme swirls, stuff like that. You can use that compound, do a quick job over it, then you go over it with a machine. And the machine polish will pull out those minor scratches from buffing. And it'll really give you that mirror shine. Once you've done your glaze, you want to do one more step. And that step is adding some kind of protection, either a ceramic coating or a wax. So we're going to be skipping 2 of those steps when we do these rims because we're not really too concerned with doing an extreme mirror polish on these. If I was, I would use the actual compound and the buffer that you would use for that special aluminum to polish these like you would on a semi-truck when they do tanks or rims on those. I just want to get these really clean and as close to back to factory looking as I can and get rid of this tarnish that's on the inside of it. That's all I'm after. When I did the brake clean process, I actually wiped off tar, road grime, I mean, you name it, it was stuck on the inside of this rim. Brake dust, it was all in there. And I used a simple brake clean, which I will use after I've buffed. But I used a simple brake clean to clean up after I was done. And I'll be doing that again after I've buffed this. So let's go ahead and hit this with the buffer. I'll get this cleaned up and then I can show you how I go ahead and wax the inside of this. And we want to get the outside of that rim polished up before we put our wax on. What I do is I shake the compound really well. Make sure that it's fully mixed up. Then I'm going to run a light ring on the inside, just as you saw me do on the video there. What I'm going to do is I have a little buildup on the pad from the last time that I did this, so I'm just going to use a flat screwdriver. All I'm doing is removing some of the material that's in the pad right now so that the pad will bite. Because the way it was, there was too much aluminum oxide built up to where I couldn't really get a good buff on this. Now, this pad I did to do my car, but now that you see how black it is, this pad is filled with aluminum oxide. Once you do this to a pad, this pad can only be used on rims. You cannot use it anywhere else. If you put it on paint, this aluminum will dig into the paint and destroy your paint job. So if you're going to buff a vehicle after this using that compound, you will need to buy a new pad. This pad now is destroyed and can only be used on aluminum rims. That's it. One thing you want to do when you're ever doing a buffing job, you want to make sure your cord is not in the way. So what I do is I sling the cord up over my back so that the cord remains back behind me. That way I'm free to run that buffer however I need it. And as you buff, you're going to have to keep adding compound as you go. So then you just keep adding and working your way around the rim until you got enough compound. You want to keep going until you got enough compound built up on the inside of the rim. And then once you do, you can do one hard buff job on it, and that will take care of all the buffing that you need to do. Then you have to wipe out whatever's left in there. As I switched sides, I had to switch the cord over my shoulder. That's why it fell down. Okay, we're getting close now. I'm gonna hit this really hard one more time. I brought the cord down and I'm just gonna move the cord around along with the tire, and I want to encircle that whole inside of that rim one more time. And I'm also trying to do is get all the way down as far as I can into the rim, so I can help polish and shine up any of that area that has heavy oxidation or contamination. Okay, so we're done with that. Right now there's a lot of buildup in the pad, so I'm just going to go ahead and clean this off. And then this will be done. This pad I will take off and put away in a separate place so I don't use it for anything else. Okay, so now the process is going to be a little more tedious. What we need to do is clean up those areas that the buffer was just too big to fit into. And we're going to take some of the compound, put it on our egg, and put a good glob on the egg. Just enough to be able to spread it around in the areas that you want to do by hand. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to spread this out over all the areas that I need to do by hand. And a lot of your main areas that you need to do by hand are down in the corners where that big buffer could not fit. Because when you put the rim back on, you want to be able to look through the spokes and see the factory look or color of the rim versus all that grime. And as you can see, it pulls off a lot of aluminum oxidation. A lot of oxidation. I'm going to grab another egg here, and I did grab some extra paper towels because I'm going to use them as I'm cleaning up as well. But I also want to get the outer bead of the rim as well. Now this is more of an aesthetic thing because no one's going to see this. It's on the back side. So this is more or less for you if you want to do it. One thing that's nice about keeping this surface clean though is when they go to put the weights on it, you'll have a clean surface for those weights to sit rather than being bulked up to where they might pop off. And again, just a ton of aluminum oxidation. Before we get carried away and do the cleaning, we want to hit this with the steel wool, get this shined up again. You don't want to use this steel wool all the time. You want to use it every once in a while when it gets really, really bad like this one has, where there's pitting and buildup of material. You want to use this Quad Zero steel wool to get down into the cracks and crevices of the rim where you've had oxidation from car washes or something else that's contaminated the rim. But if you do this all the time, you're going to start putting micro scratches in the rim, and you're going to lose the shine of the rim. So save this for when the rims are really bad. This vehicle has not been done yet. I have not done this part of it to it, which is why it's getting it now before I mount these back on. I'm just taking my time. I'm hitting every spoke, every spot that a normal wash or a normal wax wouldn't normally hit, and where it's built up material. And when you're going to use quad zero steel wool to polish something like I'm doing here, make sure you use a fresh, clean one. Don't use one that's already been matted down, that's filled with a bunch of contaminants. Make sure it's a clean and fresh one. Usually you can buy a pack of them, and I'm actually currently almost running out, so I will need to go buy more. And you're not rubbing hard. It's just a very light pressure across the rim, and the purpose is just to pull off any contaminants and kind of restore that shine before you add that wax protection coating on it. And the reason I'm doing this now before I do the brake clean on the other side is I don't want that brake clean to get into the steel wool, and then to have you rub that into the polish or rub that into the rim with the steel wool. And if you have spots that have a little bit of light oxidation in it and you're trying to get them to shine back up, just very light pressure, just go across it. If you notice that it starts to haze though, and that's where you'll need to pay attention as you're going, is you'll see a spot where it'll shine up really nice. Then you want to stop. You don't want to keep going. But if you start noticing any hazing, don't rub on that spot anymore, because that hazing is saying you're scratching the chrome or the surface of it. Like I said, this is just to get extreme contaminants out. You're not going to do this every time you wash your vehicle. You're going to do it maybe once or twice for the life of the vehicle if the rims get really, really bad. Just kind of help save some money versus having to go out and buy new rims. You know, you're kind of refurbishing the ones you have. And now that rim is currently clean and shined up. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of reflection in that rim versus what it used to be. I'm going to stand this up to clean off the back side of it. Now you're going to try not to get too much of the brake clean on the nice side that you've already done, but you need to get this stuff off. Because right now, this will only make it worse when you go to put the wax on. You won't get the nice shine out of it that you're after. You're gonna go through a lot of paper towels in this process. You gotta pull all that old buffing compound off. What you want to do, put a good amount of brake clean on. You're going to get some on the other side. There's nothing you can do about that. You'll wipe it off before you put your wax on the rim. What you're doing, just wiping this rim up, trying to get that stuff out. And you see me spinning the tire here, but you can just roll it across the ground. And I might show that process here now as I'm doing this one. So once you've gotten what you think is the majority of that oxidation out, you're going to go over it one more time. And this time, I'll do that rolling technique that I was talking about. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to roll back as I go. Okay, so what I did is I rolled it, I wiped it to let that brake clean go in. Now I'm going to roll it as I'm wiping it, just so I'm not having to spin that heavy tire and lift it up all the time. And that allows you to spin around that rim very quickly. You know, if you're trying to clean these up in a hurry and you don't want to waste half the day doing it, that's a quick way to do that process. Just to lightly spin the rim. Make sure you get all the way around and that it gets clean. Once you've done that, you're going to have some of that hazing from the brake clean you did on the outside of the rim. This is a good time to go after that hazing. Get that stuff wiped off before you do that wax. And that's another reason why you want it to steel wool first, because it shined it up where that stuff just easily wipes right off. And there was one spot that I forgot that you should clean, and it did not get any brake clean in it. What you want to do is clean out the holes where your lug nuts go, because there is always a lot of contaminants and dirt and grime that builds up in those. And that doing this little step makes a big difference in how much that rim will shine when it's bolted up. If you see any spots that you need to go back and retouch up, once the brake clean is dried up, just go back and lightly touch them up. Okay, and that process is done. Now we're going to move on to the wax. Now you don't need to wax it, but the reason that I go ahead and wax mine, I'm going to show you what happens when you're not careful with your steel wool. I had a microfiber with steel wool in it. I have to throw this all away. I don't want this microfiber touching any glass or paint at this point, so it's all going to get thrown away. The reason that you're putting wax on is just to add that layer of protection so that you don't have to do this. It isn't something that you want to be doing every time you take a tire off of a vehicle. But if you get at it and do it, sometimes you might have to do it once a year. If you use the vehicle quite a bit or there's a lot of contamination buildup, you might have to do it once a year. Other times, if it's a vehicle you don't drive much, you might do it once in its lifetime. I'm not looking at doing this on this Dodge for a long time. The Crimson 5.7. I'd like to put a whole new set of rims on it before I ever do this cleanup again. But that's the process that you do to restore these old rims, so you don't have to go out and buy new ones just to get the appearance back on the vehicle. This is the wax I like to use. Again, not trying to show name brands or nothing, but that is the wax we are using, just a light wax. Just going to do a simple coat here with it. And I'm going to rub it in real good, make sure that wax gets in. And once the wax is in, I'm going to let it set up for a bit before I buff it off. What I'm doing is just kind of coating it. Make sure you get down into those lug nut holes. So, like I said, I'm going to let that set up. I'm going to go ahead and wax the other side of this. Now this side might be your more crucial side, so make sure you get a good coat of wax on this. Sometimes you may want to add 2 or 3 coats of wax on the inside, just so that you don't get that road grime buildup. But in order to do 2 coats of wax, you should do your first wax, let it sit for 24 hours, then do your second one. I don't have time to do that on this vehicle today. So I'm going to do the first coat, and then I'm going to buff it off, and then this rim will be ready to go. And when I'm buffing off the material, what I want to use is a microfiber towel to buff that wax off of the rim, because it's going to give me the best look and the best shine. And it'll also make sure that it removes the hazing and leaves behind what you want. If you just use a paper towel, all it does is kind of smear it around, and then it may not buff it up to a shine like you want. That's why you use the microfibers. Microfibers, it's important to wash them and keep them clean, But make sure you pay attention to the directions. One mistake that most people make with microfibers is they'll put them in the dryer. Rather than doing a tumble dry, they'll put them on a normal heat cycle for a dryer. That heat cycle gets too hot and it melts the microfiber ends on the towel. So the only way to do it in a dryer is to put it on a tumble dry setting or very low heat, manually turn down your heat setting so that you don't melt the microfibers. Otherwise you hang dry them, but don't hang dry them outside because the dust from outside will get caught in the microfibers, and then there was no point in washing them. So the outside of this rim is very clean, very shiny. We restored the look of this rim on the outside. On the inside, we'll go ahead and buff off whatever extra wax we had. And now the inside of this rim is done as well. I will bring you in for a close-up. So here's what that rim looks like after. As you can see, there's quite a bit of shine in here now where there wasn't before. You'll also notice that you don't have the browning or the hazing that we had prior to doing that buff. And again, on the outside of that rim, you see the reflection and the shine after the steel wool. You can also see the light reflecting on the inside of this rim right here. So we have restored this rim and we've gotten it ready for use. This will about do it for today's video. I'd like to thank you for clicking and watching all the way through. Please like this video, subscribe down below, and I'll see you on the next one.